All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
You know, I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah.
Today, we are talking about language learning, which something I know that a lot of you out there are super into.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we talk about language learning a lot on the show.
We do.
But today, we're going to be looking specifically at this idea of fluency versus proficiency.
Okay.
So, you know, we hear these terms all the time.
Yeah.
And we kind of throw them around and use them almost interchangeably.
Right.
But it turns out there's actually like a very clear distinction between the two.
Absolutely.
And so for this deep dive, we are going to be looking at a really interesting quote that I found, actually.
Right.
And the quote says that you cannot be fully proficient without being fluent, but you can be fluent without being fully proficient.
That's interesting.
So yeah, let's jump right in, and I'd love to just hear from you. Like, what does that quote even mean?
Well, I think it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about here, because so many people, when they think about language learning, what's the first thing they think about?
I mean, for me, it's like, oh, I want to be able to speak.
Exactly.
I want to be able to, hold a conversation.
Right. And that's fluency, right?
Yeah.
It's that ability to communicate smoothly and easily without, pausing or struggling to find the words.
Right. And, when you hear someone speaking fluently, it's like you can just tell right away.
Yeah. They have that natural flow.
Yeah.
But proficiency, that's a whole other ballgame.
So what does it actually mean then to be proficient?
Well, it's really about going beyond that surface level of communication.
Okay.
It's about having a really deep understanding of the language.
Okay, really
like really deep.
Okay.
It's about accuracy, making sure you're using the grammar correctly.
Right.
It's about having a broad vocabulary.
Uh-huh.
And it's about being able to understand and use the language in all sorts of different situations.
So like, not just like ordering a coffee,
right?
But like, I don't know, giving a presentation or writing a poem or something.
Yeah, really, like being able to really engage with the language.
Got it.
At a much deeper level.
So like, how could we even maybe think about this in terms of an analogy to help people understand this a little better?
So let's see. Okay, imagine someone who can play like a simple song on the piano.
Okay.
Right? Maybe they've learned a few chords. They can play, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something.
Right.
They can play it fluently, right?
Yeah.
It sounds good. They don't have to stop and think about every note.
Uh-huh.
But are they proficient?
Probably not really, right?
Probably not, no.
Like they can't.
They couldn't sit down and play a Chopin concerto.
Right, exactly.
So in that same way, you can be fluent in a language.
Uh-huh.
You can get by in everyday conversations. But to really master the language, to be able to understand and express complex ideas, that's proficiency.
Okay, so like, it sounds like you're saying that like fluency is like a good starting point.
I think it is, yeah.
But proficiency is like the ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. And one of the things that the source that I found that has this quote,
right,
it points out that like a lot of online language learning resources,
right,
they really focus on fluency.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
And sometimes even at the expense of proficiency.
Yeah.
It's like
they kind of promise you, learn to speak Spanish in 3 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and those programs can be great for building confidence and getting you started.
Yeah.
But if that's all you focus on, you might be missing out on some of the really important, deeper stuff.
What kind of stuff do you mean?
Well, like grammar, for example.
No.
A lot of these programs, they kind of shy away from grammar. They try to make it as simple as possible.
Right. Like just memorize these phrases.
Right. And that can be fine for getting started. But at some point, you're going to need to understand the rules of the language.
To really progress.
Yeah, to really progress and to be able to express yourself fully.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like, what if you learn a language just by memorizing phrases?
Right.
But you don't actually understand the grammar. Like what happens when you encounter a situation that you haven't memorized a phrase for?
Exactly. You're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
You can't really improvise.
And you can't.
You don't have the tools.
Really? Yeah.
To create your own sentences.
They're just kind of stuck.
Yeah. And it's not just about grammar either.
Okay.
It's also about things like vocabulary range and cultural understanding.
So like if I'm just learning like, how to order food and like ask for directions, like I'm not really learning,
you're not really getting
the richness of the language.
Yeah. You're not learning about the history, the literature, the art.
Right.
All those things that really make a language come alive.
And so how, I'm really curious, how can we avoid this, like, as language learners?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it really comes down to being mindful of the resources that you're using.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Look for resources that don't just teach you phrases, but that actually explain the grammar, that expose you to authentic language materials like books, movies, music, and that encourage you to think critically about the language.
So it's almost like,
Yeah.
If fluency is like, building a house on stilts,
Oh, I like that.
like it looks good from afar,
Right.
but proficiency is like actually building a strong foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that your language skills are built to last.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's not just about finding the right resources either. It's also about the way that you approach your learning.
How do you mean?
Well, a lot of people, they get so focused on speaking
Yeah.
that they neglect other important skills like reading and listening.
Right.
And those skills are crucial for building a deep understanding of the language.
So are you saying we should like stop speaking altogether and just focus on...
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think speaking is important,
Yeah.
but it's all about balance.
Got it.
You need to make sure that you're getting enough input
Okay.
before you start focusing on output.
So input is like...
Input is like everything that you're taking in. So
Yeah.
reading, listening, watching movies, and then output is...
Output is what you're actually producing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking, writing.
So it's like you need to read and listen
Absorb.
before you can really start...
Before you can really express yourself effectively.
So like reading is actually really important.
Absolutely. It's one of the best ways to build your vocabulary, improve your grammar, and to get a feel for the rhythm and flow of the language.
And what about things like...
Yeah.
Like watching movies and TV shows?
That's great too.
Okay.
It's a fun way to immerse yourself in the language, to hear how native speakers actually use it, and to pick up on cultural nuances.
Right. So if you are someone out there who's like trying to learn a language and you're using like online resources, like what are some tips you would give them?
Well, first of all, I would say, be patient.
Okay.
Language learning takes time.
Yeah.
Don't expect to become fluent overnight. Second, I would say, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That's a good one.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
It's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
And actually, it's how you learn.
Right.
So embrace those mistakes and learn from them.
And maybe like a last tip.
Okay. I would say, don't forget to have fun.
Ah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Language learning should be enjoyable. So find ways to make it fun for yourself.
So whether that's, watching movies or listening to music or
traveling or...
Yeah, or talking to people.
Exactly. Whatever you enjoy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so insightful.
I'm glad.
I feel like we've really like gotten to the bottom of this like fluency versus proficiency thing.
I hope so.
And I think this is something that's really important for language learners to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
So as you continue your language learning journey, just remember, fluency is fantastic.
It is.
But it's proficiency that really unlocks the true beauty and richness of a language.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course.
And we will see you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
For another deep dive. Sounds good. All right. Bye. Bye. All right. Okay. So as we wrap up here, I just want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked a lot about fluency and proficiency and how they're different. But I think it's also important to remember that they're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Like you can be both.
Absolutely.
Fluent and proficient.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think the best language learners are the ones who strive for both.
I agree.
So as you continue on your language learning journey, I want you to ask yourself, how can I find that balance?
Yeah.
How can I develop both fluency and proficiency?
That's the key.
In the language that I'm learning.
Absolutely.
And I think if you keep that question in mind, you'll be well on your way to becoming a truly successful language learner.
A well-rounded language learner.
All right, everyone. That's all for today.
See you later.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.